All right, everybody. Well, welcome to Live from My Drum Room. I'm excited to have my guest today, Adam Deitch. He's a four-time Grammy-nominated drummer, composer, producer, and arranger. Um, he's one of these guys that can really do anything, and it's really a great honor to have him on the show with me today. So without any further ado, please welcome my guest, my first guest of 2024, I might add. Please welcome Adam Deitch. Adam, welcome to the podcast.
Hanging out reading Peter Erskine's book.
Oh, that's a great book.
This is a great book.
That's a great book. I thumb through that from time to time. I haven't recently, but that's a great book.
It's got some good stuff in it.
Great to see you, man. Welcome.
You too. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm going to jump right in because, and first of all, I want everybody to know I really appreciate you being the sport that you are and being here today, because I know you're a little under the weather. So if you got to step away and, I can totally relate. I've been dealing with that myself, as I said, for the last few weeks now. So
right on. Yeah, I had two gigs in Denver with my quartet, the Adam Deitch Quartet, that I was just, put out a record, and we had our I had my little Denver home, record release party thing for 2 nights. And then I had to fly out at 7 a.m. after two of them to play with Les Claypool in San Francisco for New Year's Eve. And that's what did it, because there was no sleep that night. Sometimes when you have an early flight, it's hard to get to sleep,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely,
So
man.
I tossed and turned, and then next thing you know, it was time to get up, and then I had to go straight. When I got there, I had to go straight to sound check, and so it was a rough couple days, but I'll be all right.
All right, man. Well, I hope you feel better. And well, you mentioned Les Claypool, so let's talk about that for a second. How was that gig? Have you played with him before?
Nope, first time. I grew up listening to Primus, and huge fan of everything he's done, and a friend of mine's in his band, Scarrick, great sax player, and he recommended me to do their New Year's Eve improv party. And last year they had Vinnie Colaiuta, so obviously, I'm not filling those shoes, but I had to do my own thing, and it was a lot of fun.
That's great, man. Congratulations. I was going to say, well, they keep getting better drummers every year. They had Vinny last year and then you this year. And,
Thanks, man.
No, man, that's wow. I dig Les's playing. I love Primus. Tim Alexander's a good buddy. And let me ask you, you must have played some Primus tunes, I'm guessing.
It's called the Bastard Jazz, and it's a gig that he doesn't want to play tunes. It's completely 2 hours of improvised funk.
I dig. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and I have this giant blister on my hand. I don't know if you can all see it, but it's blood in there. And
Oh,
I just try
man.
to, I just instantly reverted to my Tim Alexander kind of mode when I was 13, 14 years old, playing in the basement. And just try to just play with less, and put some fire on the stage. That was the goal.
Dig it. Dig it. Did you play your kind of usual setup with it? Did you like what you normally would use for?
I played a 5-piece. I haven't played a 5-piece in years. I did 10, 12, 16, and 22. And that was fun, just having some more toms, and
Right.
a couple extra crashes, kind of like my rock setup.
Right on. Yeah.
It was fun.
Man, I've been really digging into what you've been doing, the last couple of years, and as we were like getting ready to do this show today, and I just like your history. First of all, both your parents are drummers, right? If I have that right,
Absolutely.
and so needless to say, they were both. I was, one of the first questions I like to ask people is like, who are some of your influences? Which is one of those things I feel like everybody asks, but I'm always curious to know, like, because what I know about you is you're a young guy, but you're like an old soul. You know what I mean? You're like, you really, yeah, you can really draw back to like the history, really legitimately like with credibility, and your parents being drummers makes a whole lot of sense that they were influences. So can you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I had the cheat codes to into a lot of, musical stuff that a lot of people had to discover on their own. And my parents both went to Berkeley the same time as Steve Smith and Scofield, and they were hanging
Wow.
with everybody. And my dad was one of the best drummers in the school at that time. And J.R. Robinson was sitting in watching behind my dad, watching him play all the time. And when I met J.R. 30 years later, after he said, "Oh, you're Bobby's kid," like, so
Yeah.
yeah. And my mother's an amazing pocket drummer, and she can swing and play funk. And so yeah, I was just raised on all the records. I remember listening to like John Coltrane Love Supreme when I was 5 years old, and my dad saying, "Listen to his left hand, listen to how he plays the cymbal," like.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just, Tower of Power at like 6, 7 years old. It, I saw Earth, Wind and Fire when I was 11. I saw a Tower when I was 12. Took a lesson with Garibaldi at 12 years old. Saw Dennis Chambers clinics at 13. So
Yeah.
it was an interesting way to grow up, so to speak.
Yeah. It makes a lot, and I didn't know this till kind of recently, Adam. It makes a lot of sense because you strike me as someone that's so immersed in it naturally, and that's how that happened. Obviously, your parents just through osmosis, just like playing those records, and that I mean that was I mean I know you went to Berkeley, and there were I think a couple of golden eras of Berkeley where a whole bunch of great people were there at the same time and went on to do great things. But
Mhm.
that period you're talking about was Steve and JR and Vinny was there at that
Yeah,
time. You remember?
yeah,
And Kenwood Denard and
yeah,
um, yeah, I mean like and your dad and your mom. Serious. And your mom went
yeah,
to Berkeley too?
yeah, yeah,
She did.
absolutely.
Okay. Wow,
Yeah,
man.
she was in an education program, but she was playing a lot, and she was in an all girl band, and she was hanging out jamming with Les McCann. And so
Oh, yeah.
it was just an interesting way to grow up. And I just yeah, we had drums in the basement, two kits always set up since I was a baby. And dad was always ready to go on the drums, play double drums. And yeah, so it was just like drums were there. I didn't even own a kit till I was 16, 17 years old. I just used my parents' kit, you
Yeah, you
know.
didn't need to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you, I mean, do you have a recollection of um, really just, how can I even ask this question? Like, I'm guessing your parents never put you behind the drums. You just sort of, they just sort of found you, I'm guessing, right? I mean, you just had this sort of instinct to want to just play the drums.
No, they definitely put me on the drums at
They
2 years
did.
old.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
remember my dad wanted the stands to go lower, and they wouldn't go low enough. So he took a hacksaw, and he was hacksawing stands to get them to go lower, before they had like quality kids drum sets.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was definitely performing out by 5 years old and playing in front of my elementary school, my whole school, with my dad on guitar, doing
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
rock tunes at 5. And I started touring the school district at 7 years old and stuff like that. So they definitely did put me on the kit for sure.
And,
I just
and
happened to like it.
yeah, I dig. Okay. And all those records you're talking about are like I'm guessing it was your parents that exposed you to like Tower of Power and would you say that that really was the catalyst to you leaning more heavily into funk drumming like it was their influence or did you just sort of gravitate towards that anyway or
Yeah, they're diehard funk and soul, Aretha, Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire heads, and they also love jazz. And
yeah.
that was what was in my house, and they were so excited about it. That was the thing. My dad's like, check this out, man. Like my dad's really into horn bands. He comes from the Buddy Rich school, and when
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
bands like Cold Blood and Tower Power and Earth, Wind and Fire.
That again makes a lot of sense having that growing up with that influence and having that music you know being played in the house you can't help but you know gravitate toward wanting to play that music wanting that being what you're into and
Yeah,
that led you to obviously we talked a little bit off camera but I want to talk about your incredible performance for Zildjian's 400th anniversary this past
man.
September. Yeah, you were great, and you paid tribute to everybody's hero, Omar Hakim. And just, I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, what was that like? Just to know that you were there to do that.
I mean, I've been a fan of Omar forever. I watched the Buddy Rich Memorial thing with him, in the 80s. I had the VHS cassette and I watched it hundreds of times. His the tune he played, Slow Funk, on that. I literally copied everything he did. I played along with it. So the opportunity to, then growing up, I checked out all the weather report and got deeper into Omar and all his pop stuff and the Sting stuff. So his career is so vast and incredible. It was an honor to play in front of him and get to meet him. And, obviously Dennis Chambers was there, Steve
Yeah.
Smith, all the other, all these, so, Terry Lynn, all these icons. So it was and then you had behind me, watching, Aaron Spears, rest in peace, and
Oh man. Yeah.
Antonio Sanchez,
Yeah.
Marcus Gilmore. It was a very
Nate
intense
Smith.
band.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nate Smith. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we were talking about that earlier, and I can't imagine what the adrenaline rush you must have been feeling up there, jam packed, you know, full house with those guys, like right
Yeah.
across watching you. But you killed it, man. You hit it out of the park. It was
Thank you,
great.
man. I
Yeah.
got to thank Gary Novak for suggesting the tune. He called me up. He goes, "You got to play this tune, Techno by Scofield. It's right up your alley." And I didn't know the tune. It was from one of the records that Omar played on, and then I started checking it out. I went, "He's right, man. This is the tune I got to do." So shout out to Gary Novak.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Gary. It was great to see Gary that night too. But
Yeah.
backing up a minute, I know you went to Berkeley, and what years were you there, Adam? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I went as they have a summer program that's when you're in high school and you go to
Yeah.
Berkeley.
Yep.
So I did that in '92,
Okay. Yep.
and that's where I met the Lettuce guys and a bunch of other amazing. I met John Blackwell, I met Little John Roberts.
Yeah.
I already knew I wanted to meet the funkiest cats possible, and I was very lucky and fortunate to meet some amazing musicians there at that time. And then me and the Lettuce guys decided to go back to Berkeley in '94. So I started in '94, '95 around there.
Gotcha. Okay. And again, that was to me one of those. I had been working at Zildjian by that time,
Yeah.
and that whole group of you guys that came out around that time, like Nate Morton was there at school at
Yeah.
that time,
Absolutely.
and
Mentor of
Johnny
mine.
Rab, yeah, and
Yeah.
yourself, yeah. It was another
Yeah.
great
Antonio Sanchez was there. And
Antonio, yeah,
yeah,
that's right,
so many great drummers, again, little, John Blackwell,
yeah,
Little John Roberts was about to leave. Um, Kendrick Scott was there, Charles Haynes and Mark Simmons, who plays with George Benson. Just so many great guys. And
yeah,
I learned so much from the students as well as the teachers.
yeah, and while you were at school, you got the gig with Average White Band, is that right?
Well, I
Or
started playing at this club called Wally's Cafe, and it was where all the hot players were, the older cats were mixing with the younger cats, and
sure, yeah,
kind of
Wally's,
yeah, Wally's was showing us the R&B funk way, and I got recommended out of there. I was also studying with Kenwood Denard and Jackie Santos, and a lot of great, Dave DiCenzo was my teacher as well.
yeah.
And yeah, so I was taking all those lessons and then applying them at Wally's. Every Sunday I had the house gig, and then I got a recommendation to go on tour with Average White Band, and I did that for 3 years.
Man. And how were you like 20, 19, 20?
I was like 21, 22 around there. Yeah.
Yeah. That must have been kind of mind blowing though, having grown up listening to that music and that band is so legendary.
Yeah.
And at that young age to be playing with those guys. And I mean, how was it did you feel pretty comfortable in that situation?
I mean, I grew up with those records, man.
Yeah.
They were shocked that I came in, and I was super relaxed, and I was at the audition. I was saying hi to all the drummers and high fiving everybody. 'Cause I don't get into that competition thing. I'm like, let's be friends, and whoever gets it gets it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was just an amazing experience. We're opening for Tower of Power. I get to watch Dave Garibaldi warm up every day and rehearse, how they rehearse, and we opened for Earth, Wind and Fire. We opened up for Ohio players, like countless amounts of soul funk legends.
Yeah.
And I got to bother everybody and get in people's faces and kind of be around them and I ended up jamming with Rocco Prestia from Tower. He wanted to like jam at sound check, and so it was just a great experience. And being so deep into the funk thing to be around those guys and the bands that we were opening up for and playing shows with was an amazing experience.
Yeah. It had to be, man. And you could play that stuff like, with real like credibility, and I'm sure that went a long way. The fact that you could come in and really kind of nail the gig like that. Yeah.
I did my best to do it. The records don't lie. That's what I always say. Like, either you check the record out or you don't. And there's intricacies in there that you have to listen to a record multiple times. And I was that weirdo that really did his homework, at a young age. So getting that gig was really fun. And I could also, because I knew the record so well, I knew what I could add to make it my own and add some hip hop flavor and in there and kind of, some of the sampled renditions of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just a really beautiful experience.
That's good. I was going to ask you that if you were able to sort of like, not take liberties, but sort of make it your own, like you said. And that's good to know that. Yeah. I'm sure you kept the form, like you kept true to kind of the vibe of it, but you could sort of, add your own little flavor to it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I added some real extra flavor one night in LA. We were doing a live DVD. It's on YouTube, Average White Band Live in LA. And after the show, Steve Peroni's there. And he goes like this. He goes, "Come talk to me." And he goes, "Adam," his English accent, I played those beats on the record for a reason. Like as if to say I didn't play his exact patterns. And this is year 3 after I've been playing his exact stuff for 2.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, "Steve, I'm sorry, man. Like, no disrespect. I just maybe I got a little carried away tonight. I didn't know you were here. Like, sorry, sir." And it was funny. He's a cheeky guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
He looked
Yeah.
serious, but I knew he was smiling. You could tell by his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I ran into him recently, and we laughed about it. So it was a pretty funny experience to get yelled at by Steve Perone. After that.
Oh man, yeah, that's kind of a badge of honor, I think. Really, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, to have the guy that played those beats kind of go, well, you. Yeah, that's great, man. That's
He
so
dug
great.
he dug it. I just I changed a couple bass drum patterns here and there. Only on again, it was year 3, and I was just starting to come into my own there and like trying to make the gig my own at that point. But he he let me know that those records are forever and always stay true to it. And I was like, you're right, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Well done, well done. And it was probably not long after that Lettuce formed. Like you had said, you met all the guys at school pretty much, and
Yeah, I mean, Lettuce was actually before all that, and they when I told them I got the Average White Band gig, they were upset, but they were like, "You got to go do this." We're all diehard funk fans, so I did that, and then for 3 years, and then while I was doing a Lettuce gig, Scofield was on one of the gigs with he was a guest with Lettuce, and because Eric Krasno from Soul Live, he knows Scofield, and so I played with Scofield, and right when Lettuce was about to take off again, and Scofield called me the next day and said, "Hey man, you want to go on tour?"
oh,
And this is
wow.
right when I got off tour with Average White Band. So it was like, wow, okay, I'm gonna push back Lettuce again, and I'm gonna go do this, play with this legend. And so I told the guys, "Hey, Sco wants me to go on tour," and once again they were like, "All right, like go ahead." But again, they were supportive, and I did 3 years with John, and we got nominated for a Grammy. I did 3 records with him and toured all over the world, so that was an amazing experience as well.
Yeah, I remember that, Adam. I do. I don't know that we knew each other yet at that time, but I think Jim McGaffey, who worked for me at Zildjian, I think was the
Yeah,
one that brought you in, and
I believe so. Yeah,
I think that's when you really kind of got on our radar. That like you had the Scofield gig. It's like, whoa. I mean, you know that's saying
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
We did a NAMM show, and it was Scofield and George Benson, both of our bands together, and that's when I got all my endorsements right that day done. And I have it was just yeah, I'm very thankful for him, and and yeah, he's done so much for my career and my musical understanding. So shout out to John Scofield.
Yeah, man. Wow. I've met Sco a couple times through Bill Stewart when he's
Yeah,
played like the Regatta Bar, and I don't know him like you do, but seems like just a great human. You know, just a
really great human, really
yeah.
funny, like viciously funny.
Yes, yes.
Had us cracking
Sarcastic,
up.
right? Yeah, yeah,
Sarcastic, his knowledge of jazz lineage, that's not in the books, like that he knows,
yeah.
that the guys know, the secret stuff, is really funny. And you'd wait till you're in the airport exhausted at 7 in the morning after you hung out in Rome the night before, and he starts telling you like jazz lineage stories of who was doing what and who this all this stuff, and we're cracking up, and I'm pushing the cart with the drum, the drums and the suitcases. It was just a funny experience, and we had a great time, and I'm always going to be grateful for him.
That's great. And you guys still collaborate quite a lot, right? I mean, you're still working from time to time together, and
Yeah, yeah, he's on my last two records,
yeah,
and to get someone like him to play on his sideman's records, basically a cat he discovered.
yeah,
Um, and I'm just super thankful that went down. And we talk all the time. You know, I text him, once a month and make sure he's good. And yeah,
that's great.
that's Uncle Skull for life.
Should we play Mushroom Gravy?
Yeah,
All right.
cool.
So yeah, this is Mushroom Gravy. Sorry, and
That's
John
all good.
Scofield. Yeah, from Roll the Tape. All right, here we go.
Mushroom gravy.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's the he's the cat, and he hit me really to so much New Orleans stuff, and there's two sides to him. He has three sides. He's a multifaceted cat, so he's got his fusion funk side, he's got his straight ahead side, then he has this in between New Orleans thing that
Hmm.
he's into, that that Bill Stewart and Billy Martin do so well. And he has whole records with Idris Muhammad, who's one of my idols.
Yeah.
And so I really got into that side of his playing, and obviously I love the fusion stuff with Dennis, and like everyone else did. But I got heavy into the the Bill Stewart stuff and the Idris Muhammad stuff, and so that this record was is kind of like a tribute to that, in a
Yeah.
way. And I'm just really I'm really glad he hit me to all that, because I was kind of straight funk and backbeat guy hitting real hard, and he kind of taught by showing me you know certain things that he dug from Bill Stewart and Jack DeJohnette, and how they play a funky thing, but it's not necessarily 2 and 4 and be it do bap then crash, how you can play kind of subtly but keep it funky.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what this record's about.
Kind of almost sort of like in between, where the sort of backbeat would be, sort of, for lack of a
Yeah,
better. Yeah. I mean, and so did Sco write that tune or did you write that tune?
I wrote all the tunes on the record. Yeah,
That's what I thought. So I mean, you're kind of really being really humble about this. Cause I mean, you
yeah.
composed that piece of music that was off the fucking charts, man. That was,
Oh, thanks, man.
yeah. I was thinking, I mean, I was listening this morning, went for a run and I'm going, I've been listening to these songs and I was really digging into that song going like, yeah, I think Adam wrote this tune. Like, it's just so, it's your parents, I'm going to be cliche, but your parents must be so proud as musicians to hear what you've developed into as a composer, not just a great drummer, but like you write great music.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
They had
man.
me on piano lessons as early as drum lessons, so it was the piano was always in the living room, the baby grand, and my dad had a whole bunch of keyboards and sequencers downstairs in the 80s. I'm talking 85, 86, 87. I was playing with his like Ensoniq ESQ1 keyboards and getting in there and trying to make little fusion tunes on it and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I kind of understood that you just take it, one note at a time, one chord at a time, and then put a bass line in, and then a groove is sometimes the last thing I come up with.
yeah.
So a lot of times the chords and the melody and the bass line come first to me, and that applies to like Lettuce. I read a lot of the stuff for Lettuce, around 80% of the stuff.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy composing. It's a fun thing for me to do.
And do you, I know you record at your home studio. Do you do mostly demos at home or do you do like finished records? Like, are you able to do like like a finished product there or?
I'm not really. I do all my demos in my house.
Yeah.
And I try to get them as record sounding as possible. And I'm about to upgrade a little bit and get a little bit some more plugins and some better mics and stuff like that. So like maybe I'll be able to do that. But my main thing is to make the demo sound great. So when I send it to the musicians, whatever project I'm working in, they go, "Wow, let's play this."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to get them excited over it. I've gotten some demos from other people that it doesn't get me excited to play the tune.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they did it online. It's all, and they're like, "Oh, it's just the demo." Well, I like to really make the demo sound as best possible, and I
That's
want the musicians to be
inspiring.
excited about the tune. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's how all these tunes come about. And I've done some finished stuff as far as like the hip hop production stuff, like I can do in the box kind of in my studio. But if it's involving live drums and live instruments, I'll probably take the demo and go to a studio and cut it with the cats.
Yeah. So for example, so when you're sending music out to the guys, you're composing at home. Are you sending, um, are you sending tracks with you playing keys and live drums and
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a couple of different, you lay like a couple of keyboards down or just a basic
Yeah, I
melody?
mean, for this, for Lettuce, I have to play guitar, I got to play bass, I got to play the clav, organ parts
Man.
on the keyboard. You know, not all the way through the whole tune. I'm looping things because I don't have the
Yeah.
dexterity to play like a part, like a James Brown part for 5 minutes straight. But you know, I can play it, you know, for 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and then loop what needs to be looped and get that, you know, get it to a point where it sounds good and send it off to the cats.
Wow. And then when you feel like it's ready to be recorded, you'll go to a studio.
Absolutely.
Do you record there in Denver? Do you go to LA, or do you kind of find a place where everybody can sort of, or maybe it varies depending?
You know, I mean, we found a great spot in Denver. It's called Colorado Sound, and it's D'Angelo's recorded there, a bunch of artists, and they just have top of the line gear,
Yeah.
and then I do the basic tracks there, and then I send it off to different people that I've worked with in New York to mix.
Got it. And so I was going to ask you that. So you produce it,
Mhm.
and maybe you have collaboration with your bandmates, but you're the producer. And then as far as like engineering, do you do much of that too? Are you like involved in like?
Um, you know, I'm not much of an engineer. You know, I respect the art of engineering, and I know great engineers, and I like just getting good, clean sounds for them to work with and do their magic. You know, like
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
everybody to work to their strengths. You know, and my strengths are not engineering, and there's a lot of math involved. There's phasing things. There's all kinds of things that I don't want to miss, and I'd rather pay someone, you know, what they're worth for making sure it sounds like it sounds, you know, and
Yeah,
how it's supposed to sound. So, you know, I'm not some guy sitting there trying to EQ my drums, and you know, it's like
I
I'm
dig.
already
Yeah,
off. I'm writing the next tune already. I'm already, you know,
yeah.
the record sent off. You know, John Davis mixed that record. He's the bass player in the JoJo Mayer group. What are they called? Nerve.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he's been a Nerve for years, and he also owns a studio called the Bunker in Brooklyn. So he mixed that record, and we're friends. He's a musician, and we speak the same language. And I had him
Yeah.
actually remix the whole record after he had already done it, and he was kind of pissed, but he did it anyway.
It
Yeah, I was like,
sounds.
"Well, how
I
did you
asked.
see it?"
Yeah, I
Go
asked that
ahead.
question, Adam, because it sounds all your records sound so great and they sound so organic, you know. And it's like I wondered. I To me it would have blown my mind if you said you did engineer them, because I would think like,
Yeah,
how in the hell can you do all those things?
yeah,
But my point was that I'm guessing that you give the engineer or who's ever mixing a great sort of basic track, or in terms of like your drum sound is already, you've probably already sort of pre-mixed it in the way you've tuned it, your kit, and your cymbal selection is always perfect for the tune. So you
absolutely.
Yeah, so you're like 5 steps along the way to getting a great drum sound already there.
You know, the tracking is very important. That you track it in a good place, and you track it with a great tracking engineer. Shout out to my friend Josh Raskin, uh, Josh Fairman. I'm sorry, Josh Fairman. He is an amazing tracking engineer that I've done about 9 records with out here in Denver, and he has great mics and knows how to get it, and everything's, you know, in the right levels. And then when the engineers get that, they can really work. And then I send references like, check out this Idris Muhammad record, or check out this Bill Stewart record, and listen to the reverb on this Bernard Purdy solo record from the 70s. Like, I
Mm,
want that reverb, and you know, it's the certain kind of chamber with the high end cutoff. So I have my notes and my references, and a good engineer goes, okay, great, I got it. You know,
yeah.
thanks for the pointers. You know,
See, yeah, and that's what I mean about like being an old soul, because you can use those records as a reference point that maybe a lot of people aren't hip to, but you know what I mean? Like you're composing a tune. I'm guessing you've already got an idea what you want your drums to sound like for this particular song. So you can then connect that person to listen to this record with Bernard Purdy, or like you say, Idris Muhammad or someone.
mm-hmm.
Maybe it's even Tony Williams or Elvin Jones. And like
Yeah,
that's the sound I want. I want my bass drum to have that, that 60s Gretsch,
yeah,
open tone, you know. Yeah.
yeah. Like you listen to some Elvin stuff, and you know you won't hear the reverb, but then he goes to his solo and he'll hit a snare, bah, and you'll hear the reverb open up at Rudy Van Gelder's studio, and you'll be like, wow,
Yeah.
like where's like that reverb is just so perfect, and it really is the sound of Blue Note records from, the 60s and, late 50s, 60s. And there's, it's never really, modern jazz kind of forgot about that sound almost, like
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone's, recording sort of having a more of a modern studio sound and tighter recording. And I miss the days when the reverb was in there, but had that, Rudy Van Gelder is really the trailblazer as far as recording, you know, the John Coltrane, everybody, Miles and everybody. So that's who I was going for, just that sort of sound and that open sort of old Blue Note sound.
Yeah. Yeah. You got it. It's like so many people go for that sound, and like you say, it ends up being, I don't know if it's compression or however it's processed, but it just doesn't quite get there. But I mean, that to me, that's a real, like, you're right in that zone. You're right in that sound.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. So when you're home in the studio and you're composing, you're thinking about tunes, are you just putting beats down? Do you always have like beats in your head that you come up with a beat and you say, I'm gonna save that for another, I'm gonna use that later? Like, do you ever get inspired that way? Like you come up with an idea and maybe you don't have a song in mind, but you put it away and then later, like, have it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I could be going for a walk and I'll hear a bass line in my head. And but what I do now is I always record it into my phone. I always use the voice notes. And right now I'm up to like 1,000 or 1,500 different voice notes of, it might be just a bass line. It might be just a melody. It might be a kick and snare pattern. It might be a bass line with a kick and snare pattern in my head. So that's one way. Well, I'll take my voice notes and then I'll go downstairs and flesh it out and make a demo out of it. And
Yeah.
that's the work part of getting it off of your phone into Pro Tools and doing the work to make it the best demo you can make so it can become a song. Because if it stays on your phone, no one's going to hear it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's one way to do it. And the other way is going downstairs and just shedding, practicing a little bit and playing whatever. And then after a while, you settle into that groove,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, this feels good. And a lot of times I would let that go and just, okay, that was a great groove. I'm going to go, I'm glad I practiced today. For me, that's not enough anymore. I need to record that groove that you settle into after you've been practicing for a while. And that's a tune to me. Like that has an opportunity to become a song.
Mm-hmm.
So that I record that and I'll immediately go from just mindless shedding and get my hands together. Then you settle into a groove, then you record it, and then now pull out the bass and see what can happen on top, and pull out the guitar and just see where it goes, explore it.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense to me, Adam. I wondered that. I wondered if, like, if you're constantly sort of hearing riffs in your head, and I got that from you, that it's sort of like not a loop, but there's always ideas going on in there, and that you got to bottle them, right? I mean, you can't let them. It's like you hear a lot of these great songwriters that talk about how in the old days when they had their little micro cassette recorder, now we got our iPhones, like you say, but you'd hear that chord progression or whatever it might be, and you got to grab it or it's gone. So
yeah, or it's gone. And I call those ideas divine, because where do they come from? I'm going for a walk and just had a nice coffee, and all of a sudden a thing will pop in your mind, and it's really up to you to capture that,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I've lost a lot, but I've also caught a lot. It's like they're like
Mm-hmm.
these little butterflies flying around. You just got to catch one and bring it back to the house,
Yeah,
and that's how I look at you've heard stories about Stevie Wonder waking up in the middle of the night, exhausted, to get up and write out the tune he just heard in his dream.
yeah, yeah,
Like I remember hearing stories like that. So those are divine ideas that you need to capture and flesh out, and hopefully it gets to the point where it's released to the public.
I mean, do you find, are there different, or I should say, are there more, when you get inspired to write a song and you hear an idea, is it generally when you're out walking, or is it just all sorts of things? It could be when you're, like you said, just you're shedding and and all of a sudden you come up with just you settle in on a beat, and there's a beat there. Is it just like a whole mix of things the way that
Yeah, so
happens?
it's both. It's both. But I definitely know that going for a walk when I'm feeling good, when I'm on the way to somewhere fun, I'm on the way to a gig or on the way to a, a party, or I got some friends coming over later and I'm feeling good. That's when the ideas start popping
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
head, man. I might hear something, on the radio, or I listen to the, Kuvo all the time. It's a great radio station out here, and always playing hip stuff, and I'll go for a walk after that, and my mind will rearrange what I just heard, and then I'll start singing something, and then I just got to record it on my phone,
yeah.
bring it home and do the work.
That's great. Shifting gears, I want to talk about, before we run out of time, I want to talk about your drum school, the Adam Deitch Drum Academy,
Yeah.
and maybe just talk about how you got the idea. Obviously, you are into you're into music education. You went to Berkeley, so it makes perfect sense that you have the background to sort of share those, the knowledge. So how did that come about? And maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Well, my parents are both educators as well. They made the decision not to tour and to stay home to be parents,
Mhm.
and do that. And it's always a tough decision when you're turning down. My dad had offers from Lionel Hampton, and Kenny Loggins, and big
Yeah,
major acts
yeah,
that he turned down to stay, at home. And so them becoming educators was, watching my mom get her master's plus and get tenured as a, you know, kindergarten through fifth grade teacher. And my dad ended up becoming a college professor in two or three different colleges where I grew up. So they're educators. I come from an educator background. So a lot of my favorite musicians, they don't come from that. So they don't really know what they're doing, you know?
right, right.
And the idea of asking them, what were you doing on this? They're like, it's kind of like you're annoying them, like, I don't know, man,
Yeah,
and I'm sure you've met cats like that, and taken lessons from
absolutely.
cats that they
Yeah,
just don't know what they're doing. They just do it,
yeah,
Whereas I was blessed to analyze what I was doing, and to understand how to analyze other drummers and what makes them special. And at dinner every night since I was 3 years old, we talk about drummers, listen to radio, listen to our CDs or records as we're eating. And my dad would stop and go like, what did you like about that? Like that, what do you think of Tony's ride cymbal? Like, well, it's just like always this kind
yeah.
of like analytical thing. Steve Gadd, I had a picture of Steve Gadd above my crib. Like, I didn't even know who he was, like, so by the time I was 5 years old, like, he's like a friend of mine. I knew his face, and I started getting into his playing really early. So I just I really love the talking about drumming, and the art of it, and what makes each drummer that I grew up loving special, and what their little thing is to me that can help other drummers. So I kind of do it from that perspective. Less on some, like, I like to do, this is what I do also, and but I always go, this is where I got it from,
Hmm.
and this is a Gad thing, or this is a, whatever, Idris thing, or a Purdy thing, or a Clyde Stubblefield thing, or Chabo, Mike Clark, or so
Yeah,
I like to
yeah,
talk about all that. And so if you dig what I do here, you're going to dig what Garibaldi played on this record,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's kind of how I like to teach. And um
Is
I
it
just
interactive, Adam, too? Is it interactive with your students? They like video, and they can watch you play, you demo something, and they can play it back for you or something like that, or
well, it's interactive in the fact that I kind of crowdsource before I make the videos. So I'll go on social media and say, hey, I'm going to go shoot 10 instructional videos tomorrow. What do you guys want to know?
oh,
You know,
dig it.
and
Okay. Yeah.
and then people go, this record or that record that you played on, or you know, how do I get my 16ths nice and groovy, or ghost
Hmm.
notes, or what do I play for a solo? So all that kind of stuff really gives me the ideas of what to do. And then I go and I make these videos, get them edited, and put them up. Some are beginners, some are intermediate, some are advanced. And
Right.
then I put up little teasers on Instagram and Facebook, and people tell me, if they're, if they're digging it or what they learned, and I go back and do more.
Yeah. That's a great approach. And that allows you to, sort of get it out to more people rather than, it would take a lot of your time if you were doing one-on-one kind of stuff with
Yeah, I
people.
did that for the pandemic. I was doing 4 or 5 one-on-ones a day.
Yeah.
And after a while, I'm sure from doing interviews and stuff, it's hard to hear yourself talk that much.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So after 3 or 4 lessons a day, I was shot, and I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I started doing, Zoom master classes, and okay, like this is cool. I got 40 people in here. This is fun. And then I was like, let me start this site. And I was very influenced by, Stanton Moore has his academy, and he's
Yeah.
teaching
Yeah.
online. I asked him a ton of questions, and he was very helpful. And yeah, so I'm just going to build it. And now I have to learn how to market things. I have to study marketing and how to
Yeah.
get this out. And when people look for drum instructional stuff, I have to, figure out how to get this in front of them and get it out there. So that's my new my new passion is marketing.
Yeah, I know, I know you're being kind of sarcastic because that's obviously you're a drummer and but you got people with you there that can help you do that. I know that, and I really think what you have to offer, the stuff that I've seen on your site, I mean, I think it's just going to be one of those groundswell type situations where it's just gonna, it's gonna happen. It really is. It's
I
yeah,
appreciate that, man.
yeah, and I'm going to certainly put a link, when we put this up on YouTube and do the podcast, there'll be links in there for everybody to go there. And, but it's like anything else. I think, you talk about it when you do stuff like this with, interviews and stuff, and the word will get out there. You got a great
Right
following.
on.
Yeah.
This is really going to help. So thank you so much. And
Yeah.
you think of all like the knowledge that was lost from a lot of great cats that didn't do this sort of thing, and all you have is the records, which is great, and you can always
Yeah.
go back to the records to check them out. But the idea of me being dust, 100 years from now, and some kid being able to go and check it out and actually see how I held the stick and see how I approached this
Yep.
groove or that groove. And I like the idea of, I guess leaving it forward or leaving some sort of way of people to in the future to check out what I was doing. So that's really the main goal of this.
That's great, man. Yeah. That's a a wonderful approach to take on it. And, as we get ready to sort of wrap things up, I want to play also your latest single, which is really cool. Your remake of the Grateful Dead's Shakedown Street.
Oh God.
And maybe you could set. I mean, I thought it'd be kind of cool to play this. It's a great version, and I think it's your most current single right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, except we we recorded this I think in like 2005 or something. Like it's so old.
No
But
kidding.
yeah, we did it years and years ago, and it was just sitting there and sitting there. And then I think somebody found an MP3 of it on their computer and went, "Man, what about this?" And I think it was our bass player Eric Jesus Coombs, and he's singing on it. So he's like, "Guys, like, I sang on this tune. Like, let's put this out." And that tune is traditionally, they wrote that tune in like the disco era, and
Yeah.
and honestly, I'm not as familiar as I should be with their songbook. Again, I come from the soul and funk and hip hop side of music thing. But I didn't even really listen to their version when I recorded this. I just wanted to throw a little New Orleans swag on it. I was heavy into a Zigaboo phase, and I
Yep.
still
Yep.
am, Zigaboo from the Meters. And I just started to throw a little Zigaboo on there and see what would happen. So that's basically what transpired here with this tune.
Well, that's great, man. Thanks for setting that up because I was going to comment. This was in that era, and as you just said, I mean, I was a kid. I was alive during that time, when like bands like the Rolling Stones and the Grateful Dead and these bands were doing disco songs, and And,
Yeah.
and the irony to the whole thing, Adam, too, by my recollection, I'm probably just a little bit younger than your parents, so I think
Yeah.
they'd back me up on this, is that like
Yeah.
all the fans of these bands, I'm a huge Rolling Stones fan, and you know, we were like disappointed that they'd sold out to disco, and you know, with their song "Miss You" and The Dead with this song, but they turned out to be huge hits for all
They
these
were
bands.
huge hits, and you know, the Stones were hanging out in Studio 54, and like
right
it
on.
was a thing. You know, it kind of took over everything, and there was something very simple about the groove that, you know, that people wanted to dance to, and it's an era. It definitely was an era, the disco era. You know, I prefer the prior to disco era, like 74, 73, 74, 75, and then you know, even like 81, 82, where the kick drum patterns came back, and it wasn't just boom, 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 but you know, it was a thing, and you know, I dig it, and it's part of history. So
Right on. All right. Well, on that note, let's play it. You guys do a great version of it. Absolutely. Here we go. Shakedown Street.
thanks, man.
You can never tell. You can never tell. You can never tell. You can never tell. Tell me this town ain't got no heart. You can never tell. The sunny side of the street is dark. You can never tell. Maybe that's 'cause it's midnight and the dark of the moon besides. Maybe the dark is from your eyes. 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 You've got such dark eyes. Nothing shaking on Shakedown Street. It used to be the heart of town. Don't tell me this town ain't got no heart. You just gotta poke around. Think you've seen this town clear through. You can never tell. There's nothing here that could interest you. You can never tell. I recall your darkness.
Yeah.
I don't know why I went to that.
I love it.
Don't tell me this town ain't got no heart. Don't tell me this town ain't got no heart. Don't tell me this town ain't got no heart. Don't tell me this town ain't got no heart. Don't tell me this town ain't got no heart. When I can hear it beat out loud. Nothing shaking on Shakedown Street. It used to be the heart of town.
I think that's a 10-inch snare. That's a tiny snare,
yeah.
cranked all the way up. Yeah, I was.
Sounds like a little
Just
side
gotta
snare.
poke
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. That's all zig. The hi-hat, ziggable all the way.
Yeah.
Is
Oh,
that the actual ending? Wait, no.
yeah, it was. Yeah,
Okay,
man,
cool. Man,
that
yeah.
was killer, man. Absolutely a tip of the hat to Zig. He'd have to be very. I mean, with your own thing, man. Those ghost notes were killer. Just
Thanks, man. It's
yeah.
20 years ago, man. It's our newest single is from 20 years ago.
Hey, what's old is new all the time, you know. So
Right,
yeah.
right.
No, and you know what? I think it's really it's the sound, everything. It's like it's kind of timeless to me anyway. I mean, it doesn't sound like an old. You know, sometimes you hear something from 20 years ago and you go, oh wow, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But that's that's sounds as good as anything that's out there now. So
I appreciate that. Thanks for listening, man.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for being here today, Adam. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you and catch up and
I have a question for you
congratulations.
real quick.
Yeah, yeah.
What drummers have you not talked to? Have you not interviewed that you are waiting to do? Because I've seen everyone knows you know every drummer on the planet. Um, and I'm just curious, who have you not spoken to yet that you would
Wow,
like to?
that's okay. Well, now that I've just talked to you, I think I'm done.
Get out
No,
of here.
I'm okay. So I'm hoping that, and I don't know that he's watching, but he may see this when it's up on YouTube. But Russ Kunkel is a big
Oh
hero
wow.
of mine. Yeah, and I was in touch with Russ a couple of years ago, and we were throwing around dates, and then he got busy on tour, and he's been,
Yeah.
you know, that the Immediate Family documentary. He was out promoting that, doing premieres on that. So I'm hoping.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, my wife and I, when we get home tonight, going to watch the documentary, The Immediate Family, and I'm going to reach out to Russ and say, I just watched the documentary. I got to have you on my show, you know. So hopefully
Yeah.
that's
Wow. That's cool.
yeah. I'm trying. I mean, I've been really blessed to have a lot of my heroes and really great drummers. And I'm trying to think of anybody else that. I mean, I have lots more people that I have in mind. I'm gonna have Matt
Or
Cameron.
if you could interview anybody from the past, or anyone that's not here with us today, that you who would it be?
Oh boy, I wish Hal Blaine. Hal Blaine was a really good
Uh-huh.
friend of mine, and I was about a year late in doing this. You know,
Okay.
Hal passed away in 2019,
Yeah.
but I
Legend.
would have
Absolute legend.
I would have loved to have had Roger Hawkins,
Yeah.
and I would have loved to have had Jim Gordon.
Yeah.
There's a book coming out very soon by an author named Joel Selvin. And I'm going to have him on the podcast probably in the next couple of months. He's sending me an advanced copy of the book on Jim Gordon. So I'm going to
Wow.
have maybe the next best thing to Jim Gordon.
That's going to be quite a read.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And I'm just trying to think. And I really appreciate you asking that question, Adam.
Yeah, man. Absolutely, man. Every time I see you with a picture with Charlie Watts or Gad or whatever, I'm just like, man, this cat knows everybody, man. So it's super cool, man. Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for being here. You're right there with all those guys, Adam. I'm telling you, man.
I love that.
Yeah, you're in that club, brother, and continue to do what you do. You're an inspiration to everybody. I mean it. You have, you know, the
Thank
comments.
you so much.
My pleasure, man. Everybody watching really dug what you had to say, and you got a lot of fans out there. And hats off to your parents, man. You got some. They're keepers. Hold on to those parents.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. Again, you know, I was born with some drumming cheat codes, so I'm very very thankful to them for sure.
That's great. All right. Well, Happy New Year. Stick with me if you would for 1 second. I'll end the stream. We'll say goodbye in the room. But I want to thank everybody for watching. A big hand for Adam Deitch. And
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's my show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like, leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. And the podcast is available on all the podcast platforms, so download it. And remember, no drummers are ever harmed on Live from My Drum Room or Track Talk. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. All right. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again real soon. See ya.